Yes, it's John G. Sutton Tales from the jails. Today I want to talk a little bit about, somebody asked me a question, you see, on the comments, asked me to talk a little bit about human resources and health and safety and all the rest whilst I was working in the prisons. I don't think they knew anything about that at the time. Absolutely no idea. Nobody evaluated whether or not it was safe to work in those conditions. And when you think, well, listen, I want to tell you this, when you think about it, locking three men into a 12-foot by 8-foot cell with no sanitation for up to 23 hours a day, I mean, would that pass any reasonable examination of a safe and healthy environment? Quite obviously it wouldn't, and therefore you're putting prisoners' lives at risk. Tell a little story here. It was round about 1981, and the governor at the time, who was Norman Brown, called a meeting. All the staff, all the staff in the prison, just a skeleton staff, locked the prison down, were all called into the chapel, and we had a big meeting, and Norman Brown was addressing the staff, all of us, chief officers, principal officers, senior officers, basic grade officers, about 400 staff altogether, packed into the establishment there. And he was standing alongside him were the local committee of the Prison Officers Association. So they were obviously supporting this. And Norman Brown got up and he said, "We've had a directive from the Home Office," he said, "and it's to advise you that you are all, every single one of you, individually responsible for the health, safety and well-being of the inmates in your charge. You are personally responsible, and in the event that any inmate is injured, then you will answer and you will be held to task. You'll be required to report, and it's your responsibility to make sure they don't get injured." And the Prison Officers Association was standing next to him as he said this. So they'd obviously decided that that was a good idea. But is it a good idea? As I told you at the start of this little rant, the Home Office, the government, the prison service were locking 3 adult men into a 12-foot by 8-foot cell. And all the staff were sat there saying nothing, listening to this bullshit from the governor. So I stood up and I shouted it as loud as I possibly could. And, if I try, I've got a reasonably big voice. And I said, "Excuse me, you are not under any circumstances holding me personally responsible for the conditions that you are enforcing upon the prisoners in this jail. You've got men, 3 to a cell, designed for 1 man. In the age of Queen Victoria, you're locking 3 men into a cell, 12 foot by 8 foot, designed in the era of Queen Victoria, and you're locking them in there for up to 23 hours a day, and that is a threat to their health and well-being. You're responsible, not me, and I decline to accept your invitation to be hauled over the coals for your misdemeanors." Well, at that point, many of the staff, hundreds of them in fact, jumped up and started shouting, "We're not having this, we're not having it." And at that point, Norman Brown and his oppos on the Prison Officers Association took an about turn and exited. End of meeting. And all the staff were coming up to me saying, "What we're going to do about this, John, what we're going to do about it?" So we ain't having it. You can tell the POA, you can tell the governor, put it in writing if you want. I said, I have told them straight. It ain't me. I'm not being held responsible. And what they're doing is they're endangering not only the lives of the prisoners, but the lives of the staff. So the gentleman that asked me if I could tell them a little bit about health and safety in prisons, well, in 1970s, 1980s, there was none. None. I was the officer in charge of the clinic on A-Wing in Strangeways prison. And it was one lunchtime, and I came on duty to take over to be in charge during the lunch hour while everybody else was off staff in the lockdown. And this inmate was in there, and I had to checked everybody. It was all right. Inmate was okay. 15 minutes later, I had another walk round, had a look. He was on the floor. On the floor. This is a hospital unit, a clinic, where they had some cells where inmates who were in need of attention. I opened the floor, the door, and he was on the floor, dead. What had happened was, this man was an epileptic, and he'd been left by the staff on his own to eat his lunch, yeah? And he had an epileptic fit and choked on it. Well, I couldn't resuscitate him. I called the alarm and got the duty doctor up, and took about 3/4 of an hour. But there was no resuscitation, the guy was gone. But nobody had said to me, you've got to watch this guy, he's diabetic, he's diabetic, he's epileptic, he's all this, and no, nothing. Just, yeah, see you now, see you after, off they went. Into the club, getting a few beers. No such thing as health and any kind of risk assessment. Risk assessment? Are they doing risk assessment now? They're putting 18-year-old children on the landings in places like Strangeways, Wormwood Scrubs, Armley Jail, Wandsworth, Pentonville. 18-year-old boys and girls. Yeah, when the Prison Act of 1953 stipulates that no young prisoner under the age of 21 may associate with adult prisoners. But the government, the Justice Department, thinks it's perfectly okay to stick 18-year-old children on the landings with a set of keys and a big hat. Get about it, lads. What do you think's going to happen to them? They're going to get manipulated, they're going to get threatened, they're going to get abused, they're going to be absolutely no use whatsoever. About as much good as a chocolate fireguard when it comes to dealing with that angry man. And there usually is quite a few angry men in prison, unless there were. Mind you, since they introduced all these Xboxes, TVs, radios, God knows what else they've got in the cells now. Would you like to come for dinner? None of this, right, you, get your coat, you're going out, and none of that. Anyway, time passes. Don't forget, on the 7th of November, watch the Sean Atwood channel, and you can read my book. Of course you can. Yeah, it's there on Amazon. And listen, this week, for the next 5 days, you can get a copy of this book, HMP Manchester Prison Officer, on Kindle, free. You can get it there. Just go on, look online, yeah? You can get it free. It's free. It's to attract attention to the book and to get people interested in reading all about the truth that's in my books about Strangeways and Wormwood Scrubs. And now it's time. Yes, folks, you've got to be warned, I know. Ding, ding, ding. It's the song dinger, but I'm not going to read a song. I'm going to read one of my poems. Yeah. You're probably thinking, how many bloody poems has this bugger written? Well, as I've been writing poems since I was about 9 years old, quite a few. This is about a friend of mine who had, well, he was a family friend, really, not specifically my friend, but a friend of the family, and he had a strange-looking crossbreed dog. And when he used to take it walking, and people would say, "That's an attractive dog. What breed is it?" He used to say, "It's a Wigan Tri-Pound." Well, of course, this is so I was inspired to write this poem called "The Wigan Tri-Pound." The Wigan Tri-Pound by John G. Sutton. That's me, by the way. When the wind blows in from Wigan and the slag heap stinks profound, when the moon is dark at midnight, there stalks the wild Tri-Pound. The creature from the Black Lagoon ran off and had a fit, Dracula bit his fingernails right down to the quick when the howls from the Wigan tripound echoed round Little Lee, and even Frankenstein's monster trembled at the knee. The beast from 50 fathoms dove into the cut. The exorcist turned to Islam, and Godzilla did his nut. While all around Big Wigan the cries and screams rang loud, as the dreaded snarling tripound strutted rough and proud. But come the hour, as they say, and there will come the man, 18 stone of danger. Brave Harry was that man. He whipped out his digestives, then dunked them in his tea, and fed one to the tripound that gazed at him with glee. Old Harry, an instant hero, had saved the town of Lee. Now he keeps the tripound as his personal guard and pet, sharing his soggy biscuits, and that's as good as it gets. Yeah, the family friend was Harry. He was eventually a chief constable, friend of my father's, and I'd known him 50, 60 years. And he had this dog, yeah. And that's the poem I wrote for him. The Wigan Tripound. Don't forget, 7th of November, Sean Atwood's channel. You can get the book. HMP, Manchester Prison Officer. Happy days.